we wrote and tested this unit called Climapse, which is a word that comes from climate and time-lapse, meaning that what we wanted to do is to offer and to show how to monitor climate in the past and possibly in the present times, and to see changes and differences in the environment surrounding us that could possibly show that something is changing. So these are the three authors. You see Terzita, Johannes, and I. And the activities included in our proposals, in our teaching unit, or better teaching units because they are a little bit structured, is an analysis of what is changing, tools, suggested tools for monitor the present situation, and namely Arduino and microbit microcontrollers are proposals, and online monitoring tools that we found them very, very, very useful to monitor situation and to study history of meteorology and climate. And then proposals for pupils, for students, and for teachers to take action and to convince people that something is really urgent to be done. Okay, so first of all, we start with the proposals of online tools that we think are very, very, very useful for teachers and are easy to be used, and they are completely at your disposals. And I will start with an online tool completely free that's called EduMed. So any address is provided, any address, any web address is provided in the slides. So this is the EduMed website, and EduMed is a wonderful weather and climate monitoring tool provided by the university, l'Université de la Côte d'Azur, French university. You can open it full screen, and when you open it full screen, you are able to see the situation, the present situation of many, many, many parameters that have been monitored so far by satellites or ground station. And for instance, if you see here on the left, the menu, you can choose to have a look at the temperature. And here you have in false color the temperature situation. You can choose to monitor the temperature 2 meters above ground, which means basically ground level, or you can go up, okay, in the atmosphere, like this is 1,500. But you can choose to see what's happening for precipitation. You see now, currently we have precipitation in France. You can choose to see with the radar, for instance, the ice. You can choose a satellite view of clouds. You can choose, and this was the first screen that you could see. This is the wind speed. Actually, you see the wind vector with the velocity. If you hover over the geographical position you are interested in, you see that the wind direction is shown. This is 10 meters above ground. You can choose to go like 3,000 meters, and you see that the wind gusts are more evident here. But you can go also and choose to monitor the air pressure. Okay, And here in Italy, for instance, we have a high pressure. This is actually 1 atmosphere, give or take, so 1015 hectopascal. But what I find very, very interesting is the air quality. We have a bad, in my area here in northern Italy, we have a very bad air quality, for instance. So if you want to study an event, like I want to show you something like what happened in Italy back in 2018, October and October 28, we had a terrible situation on October 28, 29, a terrible situation. If we go like 2,000 meters, you can see the wind. We had a terrible wind, a storm called the Via storm here in the northern Italy. And this caused millions of millions damages here in this area in the mountains. Okay, no need to log and to timber because many forests were damaged. And so what you can do actually with this tool, you can study as well the precipitation, where you can see that we had not only wind, but also heavy storms here. So what you can do with your students is to tell them, okay, can you remember what happened in your area like 2 years ago or 3 years ago in the past? Maybe you had floods, in your area or something like that. So you can go set the time, data here, set the time, day, and see what happened with respect to the temperature, precipitation, air pressure, and you can have a sort of case study, and maybe you would like to ask your pupils if they can possibly show causes for what had happened, like causes, reasons that triggered floods, that triggered a storm, maybe triggered snow melting or something like that. So we don't have much time to show you anything, but just the idea. With this calendar, you can go back, you can travel in time. For instance, here in 2020, December, I can remember that in my area this weekend, we had floods here in the area of Modena. And if I go here, snow cover, I can see that here in the mountains surrounding us, we had a lot of snow, and all of a sudden, if I go to the wind speed, you can see here winds from south blowing in the mountains, which means high temperature. And this is the idea. So you ask your students, can you find reason for what happened? And that's it. So this is the idea about EduMed. The web address is provided, and I think you really should try this tool because it's very, very, very useful. And the second tool we suggest you is the Copernicus Climate Data Store. So if you digit the Copernicus official address, the address is actually provided, but you go on this page. Copernicus is the European system that, using satellite data together with ground stations data, offers you a wide database of anything related to the atmosphere, meteorology, the oceans, the sea, and stuff like that. Okay, what we were interested in actually, and we suggest you to use, is this climate change. So you go to climate change and you want to discover climate change. I hope you can easily follow what I'm doing here, but I don't think you will have problem. And you go to Climate Data Store, okay? But at this point, you will be asked to sign up. So you've got to register. It's very easy. You just have to provide your name to decide the password, and maybe you give the organization for which you work, that I think is a school. And the big surprise is that this tool is completely free. And at this point, you will be allowed to see what I see now, and you want to go in Climate Data Store Toolbox. And the big surprise is that you've got anything at your feet. You've got loads of pages of documentation, but since we don't have much time, I would suggest to go directly to the so-called toolbox editor. So don't be afraid, because what you see is a Python program, but you don't need to be able to program in Python. I just show you that here you have, I highlight them, so I hope you can spot the lines that I am highlighting. You can see that there are variables here, parameters. You can keep them as they are, or you can change them. You go and read the documentation is easy. And I will highlight these lines where you will have to provide, and this is the only thing you have to provide, the longitude and latitude you are interested in. Probably it's the location in which you live, in which you teach. So you provide the longitude and latitude. And then if you keep this parameter here, what you want to do now is to press run and start the application. But before pressing run, I focus here on the column at your left. So many examples are provided. There is a very famous Hello World that's used normally by programmers to start and having some and to start and experience the programming thing. And you have a lot of examples that you can use and just change a couple of parameters, and then you will be able to run everything. So you see, my city is in Modena, and I study many things. I just want to show you here that after you start run and you want to open a study in another window, so it was very quick because I already prepared it, because we didn't have so much time. But normally it could take 30 seconds or also a couple of minutes to get the data plotted here. And that's because you are studying everything online. So you depend not only by your computer, not only by the computer that is providing you with the service, but you depend also from the internet connection, and that's it. And here you see it's the temperature in different years here at home in my city. I would like to show you that during the summer we reach temperature as high as 40 degrees. You see 39.72. You can cut, you can zoom in. Okay, you see, you can do a lot of things, and you can even produce Excel files and stuff like that. So it's very useful. After the tool, Teresita will show you other tools. I tell you the microcontroller I used together with my builds. I decided to use this Arduino MKR Wi-Fi 1010 because it has the Wi-Fi feature on board. And I used it on top of this Arduino MKR. MKR stands for Maker Connector Carrier. It's Groove compatible. Groove is the way of with which the connectors are made. You see these white connectors. So together you see is 33.50 euros plus 20.30 euros. And with these two and sensors cost as few as 1, 2, 3 euros. We monitored many parameters that you could see in the previous tools, in the tools I showed you, so that with the tools, with the online tools, we studied the history, the past history, and with these microcontrollers that are widely used in education, we could monitor the present parameters like atmosphere, anything in the atmosphere, barometric pressure, air quality, temperature, humidity, so that to see how these parameters are monitored.
And the other tool is EO browser, which is a browser where you can see some data from European satellites. I think that the people that designed this browser were from Rome, because everyone you start to see it, you always start from the view of Rome in Italy. And here you have the map. Of course, you can zoom out and see all the Italy and all the Europe. And on the other hand, here you have this menu when you can search from data from satellite. You have the different name of the satellite, but you have another tool which is very useful to search for this material in an easy way, which is the team. Because if you open this menu, you will have different teams, and some of them will be very interesting to be used at school with students. For example, atmosphere and air pollution, or geology, or snow and glacier, volcanoes, why not? And we decide to try to understand if the lockdown, unfortunately, we had in 2020 had an impact, maybe positive, on the environment. So we search for the data, and now you will see we have just one satellite that show this data from atmosphere and air pollution, so it is easier. We search for this data, and we understand that we have a lot of components you can search for the distribution, and some of them are the one we use to evaluate the air quality index. For example, one of these is the nitrogen dioxide, so you can select this and search for data. You will have a lot of images from the satellite, all this one in green, a different satellite. You can choose one of them. For example, I will choose this one, and you have just to visualize it to see the data on your screen. Now, maybe my computer is quite slow, but the data are coming, and using the legend you have here, you can understand where we have a good air quality, talking about just the nitrogen dioxide, which is a good indicator, and where this air quality is not so good. You can zoom in and it very easy that where we have big cities, the air quality will be not so good. For example, it's strange that it's good in this area where I live, but maybe just because there are no data. So we asked to the students to search for data about the nitrogen dioxide before the beginning of the lockdown and after, and try to compare these two data and understand if our lockdown were very negative for us, that we have to stay at home for 2 months, but maybe have a positive impact on environment. And we use this activity just as a brainstorming to open a discussion about what we can do to have a better, good air quality without staying at home in lockdown for 2 months. So I will invite you to go to the EO browser, and I will just to show you how to select different data, because here you can see the data. So you come back in time in 2020, maybe in March, and search for the data. For example, I remember that the lockdown in Italy started the 10. We can search the data from the 8 and see what happened about the nitrogen dioxide in this data. Look at the north of Italy where we have the big city, how the high quality it's not so good. And we can make the same thing during a day along the lockdown. For example, in April the 8th, so 1 month later, the situation should be better. Unfortunately, it's not, but we try to search it in some places, and it seems that during the lockdown, without cars in the street, the air quality was good. And this is one just of our activity. We you can find also on the online material. And looking forward to see what happened in your city during lockdown. And thank you so much.